My name is Nur Shuhada binti Abdullah, matrix number 19BB03009.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Fatim Diana binti Muhammad Nuri. My matric number is 19BB03010.
Hai, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Alif Daniel Hazlan and my nomenclature is 90BB03017.
Hai, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Robita binti Aziz. Number matric 19BB03018. So our group gonna talk about the roles of the International Monetary Funds. What is mean by International Monetary Funds? The International Monetary Funds, in short, is IMF. Is an organization that provide financial assistance and advice as well guidance to the member countries. The International Monetary Funds (IMF) officially came into existence in 1944 due to the Bretton Woods Conference held the year before. Together with sister organizations, the World Bank, the purpose of the International Monetary Funds was established to prevent the economic crisis such as the Great Depressions. It is a specialized agency for the United Nations and is operated by 190 member states. The International Monetary Funds opens its membership to any country that conduct foreign policy and also accepts the laws set by the International Monetary Funds. The International Monetary Funds is responsible for the creation and maintenance for the international financial systems as well as the financial payment system between countries. This provides a more systematic mechanism to manage the foreign exchange transactions in encouraging investment as well as able to promote a more balanced global economic trade between other countries. To achieve this goal, the International Monetary Funds (IMF) focus and advise its participating countries on a country macroeconomic policies which will affect its exchange rate, a government budget, money, and also in the country's credit management. The International Monetary Funds (IMF) will also assess a country's financial sector and legislation as well as the country's structural policies in the macroeconomy related to the labor and employment market.
So, now I'm gonna share with you guys the evolution of IMF. The most salient feature of the IMF's financial structure is that it is continuously evolving. IMF ni dia telah memperkenalkan dan sempurnakan pelbagai facilities dan polisi pinjaman over the years untuk nak menangani changing keperluan dan keadaan yang khusus. IMF ni juga dia telah hentikan atau ubah penyesuaian tersebut dalam appropriate conditions. Okey, kita tengok. During 1945 until 1960, IMF facilitated a move to convertibility for current payments. Maksudnya, member countries were able to freely convert the currencies of one member country into those of another. 1961 until 1970 pula, IMF ni develop a new supplementary reserve asset, the SDR. SDR ni maksudnya Special Drawing Right. It also developed a standing borrowing arrangement with the largest creditor members. Furthermore, pada tahun 1971 until 1980, the two world oil crises led to an expansion in IMF financing and development of new lending facilities. Okay, in 1981 to 1990, the developing country debt crisis triggered a further sharp increasing in IMF financing, provide dengan higher levels of assistance provided untuk individual countries than in the past. Okay, during 1991 to 2000 pula, IMF ni dia wujudkan kemudahan pinjaman sementara untuk smooth the integration into the world market system. Okay, last but not least, in 2001 to 2006, ekonomi dunia dia mengalami tempoh of sustained economic growth, expanding trade and capital flows, and relatively low inflation and interest rate. Okay, that's all from me. So we're gonna move to the next slide.
So my first point of view is United Nations, UN, are the agencies that create or design the International Monetary Fund, IMF, as one of the autonomous organizations. So there are many purposes of the IMF. So here I provide for you the purposes of the International Monetary Fund, IMF. So the first one is IMF is responsible to promote exchange stability. Second, to promote the international monetary cooperation. Third, to maintain the orderly exchange arrangement. Fourth, to avoid any competitive. Fifth, to assist the establishment of the multilateral system of payment. And the last one is to make duration shorter and to decrease the level of imbalance. So, in order to maintain stability and prevent the crisis of international monetary system, so the IMF is responsible to monitor the member countries' policies, national, regional, and global economics. So, IMF is also responsible for financial development. So, first, let's go through the surveillance. Okay, what are the characteristics of surveillance? So the first one is universality. Okay, according to 1977 surveillance decision principle and procedure that guides surveillance apply to all members of the country. So IMF will be routinely held consultation with every member of the IMF. The consultation that will be held is without looking about the country's level of development, the strength of the countries, the weakness of the economics policies. So the second one is cooperation. So IMF is looking forward to working in cooperative spirit with members country. So based on mutual trust and confidence. So the IMF realized that success is depend on how countries implement their activities and based on effectiveness of the communication. So the last one is uniformity or similarity of the treatment. Okay, Executive Board has repeatedly say many times about the importance of maintaining the treatment among the members of the country. So it needs member in similar condition to be treated similarly. Year by year, the effort of the IMF surveillance has been strengthened. Many initiatives has been taken to build up the effectiveness, bilateral surveillance, and crisis prevention. Okay, as you can see in the slide now, here I provide for you the two strengthening surveillance effort or initiative that has been taken by IMF to prevent the financial crisis. So the first one is financial sector assessment. Okay, IMF has launched FSAP or known as Financial Sector Assessment Program in May 1999. Okay, this program was jointly with the World Bank and the objective is to enhance country sector of finance. Okay, so many criteria need to initiate this program. The second one is anti-money laundering and combat with the financing of terrorism. So in September 2001, the IMF has escalated its contribution to international efforts in anti-money laundering and combat the financing of terrorism. So this is to seek the prevention of the abuse of financial system and to protect also enhance the integrity of international financial system.
Roles yang kedua bagi IMF is financing temporary balance of payment needs. The IMF to lend to member countries that have a balance of payments need to provide temporary respite and enable countries. Okay, pinjaman sedemikian biasanya dilakukan dalam konteks of an economic adjustment program yang dilaksanakan oleh negara peminjam untuk nak betulkan kesukaran imbangan pembayaran, at the same time nak melindungi sumber IMF tu sendiri. Okay, tambahan pula, untuk providing direct financing to its member countries, the IMF plays on important catalytic role in helping member countries to mobilize external financing for their balance of payment needs. Sources of IMF financing ada 3. Yang pertama ialah quota subscriptions. Okay, quota subscription ni adalah main pada IMF's source of financing. Okay, each member of the IMF is assigned as quota based on broadly on its relative position in the world of economy. The second one is borrowings. Borrowings, the IMF is authorized under its article of agreement to supplement its ordinary resources by borrowing. Okay, the third one is gold sales. Okay, gold sales. The IMF acquired virtual all of its holdings of gold prior to second amendment of the Article of Agreement in 1978. Prior to this amendment, gold played a central role in the functioning of the IMF system. The first 25% of members' quota subscriptions and quota increases was normally paid in gold. Interest on outstanding IMF credit was normally paid in gold, and members could also use gold to purchase a reserve currencies or repay debt to the IMF lah. Okay, the second amendment severely limited to use of gold in IMF transaction is the IMF only sell gold pada prevailing market prices and accept gold in the discharge of a member's obligations to the IMF. No other transaction in gold are permitted. Okay, we continue with IMF financing to member of the countries. Kat sini pun ada 3 juga. Yang pertama ialah purchases and repurchases. Okay, dekat sini, the IMF extends financing from GRA resources through a form of swap. The IMF provides reserve assets untuk kepada borrower from the reserve asset subscriptions of member or by calling on countries that are considered financially strong to exchange their currency subscription for reserve asset. Okay, lepas tu borrower purchases these reserve assets with its own currency. This increases the IMF's holdings of the borrower's currencies and reduces its holdings of reserve asset of the currencies of creditor country. Creditor now have claimed on the IMF equal to the IMF's holding of their reserve asset of currency. Their reserve tranche position increase. Okay, lepas tu the borrower pula later repurchases its currency from the IMF with reserve assets. Okay, the second one is arrangement. Okay, in arrangement, IMF financing whether from GRA resources of constitutional resources, it's provide primarily under arrangements from the IMF yang mana similar pada lines of credit. An arrangement is a decision by the executive board that assures a member that it will be able to make purchases to receive this disbursement from the IMF in accordance with the terms of decision during a specific period of time and up to a specific moment. Okay, the last one is outright purchases. Okay, under certain circumstances, the IMF lends outside of an arrangement with a borrowing member country. Purchases made in the absence of arrangement are called outright purchases. Okay, outright purchases ni apply to first credit tranche borrowing under the credit tranche to emergency assistance, for natural disaster or to post-conflict countries, and to temporary net export shortfall, financing under the compensatory financing facility. Okay, that's all from me.
Okay, today I would like to present about the technical assistance and training. What is a technical assistance and training? Technical assistance and training is a crucial aspect of the International Monetary Funds and its operation and helps members in strengthening their policy formulation, implementation, the legal and the market framework within which they operate. Technical assistance is provided by the IMF to members countries mostly in the form of human resource. The human resource comprise IM staff headquarters based on consultant and expert hired by the IMF, who provide the service to member countries in response to specific requests for assistance from the authorities. Baiklah, di sini yang saya faham the technical assistance and training, IMF memberikan bantuan teknikal dan latihan untuk membantu negara-negara tertentu dan juga membina institusi ekonomi yang lebih baik dan memperkukuhkan kemampuan sumber manusia mereka. Bukan itu saja, IMF juga merancang dan melaksanakan kebijakan yang lebih efektif dari bidang pencukaian dan pentadbiran, pengurusan anggaran, dan yang terakhir adalah statistik ekonomi. Okay, slide number 2 is the types of a technical assistance and training. Okay, the technical assistance is a delivery in a variety of ways, and IM staff advise a government and central bank official on a specific issue. And the IMF may provide a resident specialist on a short or a long-term basis. Okay, we can see types of number 1 is the statistic department. The statistics provide advice on balance of payment and international investment position and external debt statistics. Also, the helping the countries on compile, manage, and disseminate macroeconomic and financial data, improve the process to provide a more accurate understanding of their or economy, and helps the government formulate economic policies, improve the investment climate and accountability. Maknanya di sini kita dapat lihat the statistik department ini, IMF cuba bantu negara tersebut untuk improvekan mereka dari segi financial data dan macroeconomy mereka, dan IMF juga cuba bantu untuk tinjau ekonomi mereka di sana, ekonomi mereka di sana untuk memberi sebagai nasihat dan untuk rancang bagaimana ekonomi mereka boleh dalam keadaan yang seimbang. Baiklah, the second one is a legal department. Aligning legal or governance framework or to international standard to support fiscal, financial reform and fight corruption. Baiklah, di sini adalah legal department cuba menyelaraskan kerangka undang-undang dan tadbir urus dengan standard antarabangsa untuk menyokong reformasi fiskal dan kewangan, dan juga mereka juga cuba memerangi rasuah, dan tidak lupa juga mereka cuba memerangi pencucian wang. Baiklah, itu adalah legal department. Dan third one is the monetary and capital market department. Working with a central bank to modernize their monetary and exchange rate framework and policy operation. Bekerja dengan bank pusat untuk memodernisasi rangka kerja dan dasar-dasar monetary. Ini juga dapat membantu meningkatkan ekonomi makro dan kestabilan kewangan dan mendorong pertumbuhan inklusif dan perdagangan antarabangsa. And the lastly is a fiscal affair department. Provide advice on the tax policy, advice in the areas of income tax, value added tax, and the taxation of natural resources. This can help the government better mobilize revenue and effectively manage expenditure, budget formulation, and public financial management. This enables the government to maintain fiscal sustainable, to improve infrastructure such as school, road, hospital, and develop fiscal policies to mitigate and build resilience to climate change and other exogenous shocks. Baiklah, di sini kita dapat lihat adalah fiscal affairs department ni adalah government cuba membantu menggerakkan pendapatan yang lebih baik dan menguruskan pengurusan belanjawan dan pengurusan kewangan awam yang lebih berkesan. Dan juga mereka juga mempertahankan kelestarian fiskal untuk meningkatkan infrastruktur seperti sekolah, jalan raya, hospital, dan juga cuba mengembangkan kebijakan fiskal untuk mengurangkan dan membangunkan ketahanan terhadap perubahan iklim dan kejutan exogen yang lain. Alright, for the slide number 3 is a source on use of capacity building resources. Okay, the capacity building is developing and transition countries often lack enough skilled personnel to collect and analyze economic information, to formulate or carry on the policies include reform, and to make the best use of foreign assistance. Baiklah, di sini adalah yang saya dapat lihat adalah pembangunan kapasiti sedang berkembang dan mereka juga cuba untuk mengumpulkan dan menganalisi maklumat ekonomi untuk merumuskan atau melaksanakan kebijakan yang diperlukan termasuk reformasi dan untuk memanfaatkan sebaik mungkin dengan bantuan asing. Okay, we can through one by one is source and use of capacity building resources. Is number one is modus of a delivery of capacity building. There has been a movement away from ad hoc, stand-alone short-term staff visit and from long-term resident expert toward greater use of short-term expert. And number two is a long-term advisors. Yang bermaksud di sini adalah penasihat jangka panjang. The member country will need advice and assistance over an extended period of time to implement reforms, di mana negara anggota memerlukan di tempat nasihat dan bantuan dalam jangka masa yang panjang untuk melaksanakan pembaharuan. IMF juga meletakkan penasihat di negara yang biasanya ditempatkan di Pusat Bank, Kementerian Kewangan atau pejabat statistik untuk tempoh antara 6 bulan hingga 3 bulan. Di sini mereka juga bekerjasama rapat dengan kaki tangan yang berpusat di ibu pejabat dan mengemukakan laporan berkala pada aktiviti mereka. Bermakna di sini aktiviti mereka di sini mereka perlu membuat laporan dan hantar kepada IMF untuk mereka cuba melihat statistik di dalam negara tersebut. Baiklah, for the next one is a short term visit by staff and headquarters. International Monetary Fund and staff can make a short visit, usually of 2 or 3 weeks. Country or expert can be assigned to a country for a period ranging from a few weeks to several years. Most short-term technical assistance visit of cover a specific subject with if a given economic sector. The statistics department also undertake multi-sector mission. Baiklah, di sini yang saya dapat lihat adalah mereka dapat melakukan lawatan singkat, biasanya 2 hingga 3 minggu ke suatu negara, atau pakar dapat ditugaskan ke suatu negara untuk jangka waktu antara beberapa minggu hingga beberapa tahun. Jabatan statistik juga terlibat dalam misi pelbagai sektor ini. Dan mereka juga merangkumi mata pelajaran tertentu dalam sektor ekonomi yang tertentu juga. Alright, for the last one is a regional technical assistance center. The regional approach to technical assistance is the Caribbean Regional Technical Assistance Center. If you can see the Caribbean Regional Technical Assistance Center, short name is a CARTEC. Yang saya boleh terangkan adalah sumber wilayah yang mereka CARTEC berpusat di Barbados. And the function is dia memberikan bantuan teknikal dalam bidang teras pengurusan ekonomi dan kewangan atas permintaan sesuatu negara. Alright. The centers provide technical assistance and training to central bank test and customer service and national statistics agency. The main goal of the center is to help members improve their economic and financial management, particularly of budget and treasury operation and tax and custom administration. Baiklah, di sini yang saya cuba boleh sampaikan adalah pusat ini memberikan bantuan teknikal dan latihan kepada Bank Pusat, Cukai dan Perkhidmatan Pelanggan atau Agensi Statistik Nasional. Matlamat mereka adalah pusat ini adalah cuba untuk membantu anggota meningkatkan pengurusan ekonomi dan kewangan mereka, terutama mengenai operasi belanjawan dan pembendaharaan. Pusat ini juga menyelaraskan kegiatannya dengan agensi dua hala dan pelbagai hala lain yang aktif di kawasan yang serupa. Alright, that's all from me. Thank you.
And in conclusion, we can conclude that the International Monetary Fund (IMF) is an international organization headquartered in Washington DC, consisting of 190 member countries. When the International Monetary Fund (IMF) was established, the IMF's priority was to provide short-term capital to help balance payments and oversee the regulation of fixed exchange rates between countries in the world, thus being able to help national governments manage their exchange rates and prioritize their own economic growth. The purpose of the assistance is to prevent the spread of the international economic crisis, which could threaten the whole world. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) was also formed to help reunite the international economy after the Great Recessions that occurred between 2007 and 2009, and the World War II, which erupted in 1939, which lasted until 1945. In addition, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) also sought to provide capital investment for economic growth and projects infrastructures. The roles of the IMF was essentially changed by the floating exchange rates after 1971, at which point the organization began to examine the economic policies of its borrowers to determine whether the cause of their capital shortage was due to economic fluctuations or due to economic policies. The IMF also examines the types of government policies that will ensure the shape of a country's economic recovery. The current challenge is to assist countries in implementing economic policies capable of reducing the frequency of crises among emerging market countries, especially for the middle-income countries that are vulnerable to large capital outflows. To manage this challenge, the IMF has expanded beyond exchange rate monitoring to achieve oversight of the overall macroeconomic performance of its member countries. Today, it plays a more active role in shaping and managing economic policy around the world. And now, due to the COVID-19, the fund's actions are focused on the 3 tracks, which is number 1, emergency financing, number 2, enhancing liquidity, and the last one, policy advice. Well, that's all from us. Thank you.